Good, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's lovely to have you joining us for Lunch and Learn again. I hope you have brought your own lunch. Today I'm delighted to welcome Rabbi Alan Garber from Shenley United Synagogue. Rabbi Garber was a student's chaplain in Leeds before, it was Leeds, yeah? Before coming over to join me at the Great Synagogue in Sydney. If you were on just a moment ago, you would have seen both of us looking younger, fresher, and with shorter beards, but more hair on top. Since then, the hair has given way to wisdom in Rabbi Garber's case, and I am delighted that he is going to be taking today's Lunch and Learn, which is on, that's really funny because it doesn't give the title when you put it on the Facebook. It just has the Kinloss Lunch and Learn, even though it asks for the title. His title, which is based on the Parsha, or a perspective from the Parsha, is "Life is not what happens to me, it is how I perceive it." Over to you, Rabbi Garber.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Lawrence. Thank you very much. It's good to be working together, Batman and Robin, and or something like that. The dynamic duo. It was a wonderful experience working in Sydney together. We're just having in Shenley like a biblical shower at the moment, which we actually would often have in Sydney. But life is life is. It's all about matter of perspective. It's not what happens to us; it's how I perceive it. That is the topic for the day, and we're going to look through the Sedge. We're going to take you on a little journey through the Sedra and also into the Haftorah, and we're going to bring out some wonderful perspectives, which I'm hoping and I'm praying that this will hopefully elevate you, inspire you, and give you a perspective. So when we, unfortunately, not in shul, but we'll have some material to be able to think about and discuss on around the Shabbos table with our friends and family over the next few days and on Shabbat. So let me share my screen with you. And I've got some short sheets prepared, which are coming up on the screen now. And you will have this, Rabbi Lawrence has this, so he can email this to you, and you might have put it up already. Is that right, Rabbi Lawrence? Yeah. There we go. Okay. So, life is a matter of perspective. What I'm going to do with you, first of all, we're going to actually look straight away into a piece of text, and there's a text which is familiar to all of us. It is our muftir, which is the third paragraph of the Shema. I'm going to read through it with you, and as we're going to go through it, we're going to bring up some questions. And in fact, as we're going through, I understand you're all on mute, but if you do have any questions, please unmute yourself and you can ask a question, or if I say something that's not so clear, if it's a general question, maybe save it to the end. But let's make a start. I'm going to first of all read through this little passage, and let's see how we go. Okay, the third paragraph of the Shema, our muftir, starts off like this: Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor. God spoke to Moses saying, Daber el bnei Yisrael. Speak to the children of Israel, v'amarta aleihem, and say to them, V'asu lahem tzitzis. Make for yourself tzitzis. Okay, first question is, why does it say V'asu, and make for yourself tzitzis? Okay, if you want to write down, make any notes, you can do. If not, I've got it all on the sheets here as well. But the first question is, V'asu lahem tzitzis. Why say and make? Surely you just say make tzitzis. What's the Vav doing there? The next question is, what does the word tzitzis actually mean? We know it refers to these the strings on the end of the four-corner garment, but actually, what does the word tzitzis mean? Which would be interesting to explore. Then it says, "V'asulahem tzitzis al kanfei vigdehem." It should be on the corners of your garments, l'dorei som, for the generations. V'nasnu al tzitzis hakanaf mesul techeles, and you put on, when it's available, the blue thread. One of the threads is blue, and that goes as part of the tassels at the end of the four-corner garment. Just interesting to point out, this is not a question, but the Or HaChaim HaKodesh, one of our commentators on the Chumash, points out something fascinating. The Torah is very specific when it says L'Dorotam. The word L'Dorotam means for generations. It comes in the middle of the sentence. He argues either the word Adoratam should come at the beginning or it should come at the end. Either say, speak to the children of Israel, and for generations they should make tzitzis on their corners, and there should be a blue bit to it as well. Or it's just said at the very end of the sentence, have tzitzis, and they should be a blue bit, and that should be Lador Tom. Why is Lador Tom doing right in the middle of the sentence? So the Torah is being very specific to teach us something fascinating, that the idea of the blue is not for all generations necessarily. Yeah, the idea of having tzitzis, the four corners on your garment, that is all generations, L'Doratam, and when it's available and you have the blue, then you can put that on. So it's an interesting prediction that the Torah makes, which the Or Chaim points out about the tzitzit. Let's go on further. So the two main questions we've got so far: why is it says va'asu, the word and make, and what does the word tzitzit means? The next things, it says this: "V'hayalachem tzitzis," it should be for you tzitzis, uve'isem or so, and you shall see. Well, you should see. It means it, and this is going to be our next question. Although I haven't actually written down in my source sheets, but this is the next question. You should see it. It should say u'isem osam. You should see them, or the word sitta is feminine. You should see or ta. Her, you should see her that sits it. So why does it say you should see it or him? Okay, then it continues. It was a Chatem es kol mitzvos Hashem, and then you should remember all the commandments of Hashem. And you should do them. Then it says v'lo sasuru acharei lavavachem v'acharei neichem, and you should not. Well, the word lo sasu or lo taturu is sort of to tour. In fact, the English word tour, when you're going on a tour around a country or you're traveling somewhere, to tour is from the Hebrew, lo taturu. You should not tour or stray. Some people translate it, stray after your heart and after your eyes. And this is the next question. Why does it say you should not tour after your heart and after your eyes? Now, I'm a chocoholic. So usually it's the case, if there's chocolate there, and I see it, I want to eat it. Yeah. Or actually, this morning, our daughter Sarah had made a lovely cake with beautiful icing on it, and I didn't really have any desire to have cake. But when I saw it, then the desire came. In other words, really, it should say here: don't go after your eyes and then after your heart. Usually, it's the eyes that see something, and then you get aroused by that. And then the emotions get going. Why does it say here, do not go after your heart, and then only after it says after your eyes? Okay, let's just review again the questions we have. Why does it say v'asu, the letter vav? What does the word tzitzit mean? Why do we have uri'item oto? We should see it. You either say you should see them, or you should see her, means referring to tzitzit. And why the order of heart and then the eyes? It should be the other way round. Let me just finish off reading the paragraph. It says, and you should go off your eyes, ashatem zonim achrechem, which you sort of desire after it, laman tizgu, in order that you shall remember, v'asisem es kol mitzvosai, remember all the commandments, v'yisem kadoshim elohechem, and this almost gives us a mantra of what it means to be Jewish. We do all these things, we keep the commandments, we have these reminders to keep the commandments. Why? V'yisem kadoshim, because you should be special, kadoshim, holy to God. And he reminds us again, we have many times in the Torah, and we mentioned this, this is part of the third paragraph of the Shema. One of the reasons we have this paragraph, the third paragraph, because there's a mitzvah to remember the going out of Egypt, as we know, both daytime and nighttime. So the last verse of the Parsha of Tzitzit mentions going out of Egypt. Ani Hashem Lokechem, I'm the Lord your God, which I took you out from the land of Egypt, to be a God to you. Ani Hashem Elokechem, I am the Lord your God. Okay, so I have those questions. Anybody got any other questions on the paragraph? Now we've seen it, they translated it and sort of started bringing out ideas about the paragraph. Any other questions you've got about if you want to unmute yourselves. Stop. Any questions? Okay, Leo had a question.
We need to unmute people to let them.
Can you unmute Leo?
Okay, hang on one second. If people put their hands up, it's easier to do it, but ask to unmute. Leo, you can unmute yourself there.
Right, I've unmuted myself. The word lohem, well, for who else should we make it? Obviously for ourselves.
Right.
For our soul tzitzis. What's the point of lohem? It's obvious if you're going to ask somebody to do something, it's obviously you've got to do it for yourself. You've got to do it. But who else are we going to do it for? Go out and manufacture it and sell it?
Yeah. So Vasulahem Tzitzis, it comes into the
The
category
word
of
lahem. It could also be an extra. What do we learn extra from lahem? I would have obviously also, if we're told also whatever a mitzvah, obviously I've got to do it.
Yeah, so, absolutely. So it's a good question, and that comes onto the concept of mitzvah haba ba'avera. We have sometimes by certain, for example, by ulakachtem lachem pre-eitz hadar. You should take for yourself. Again, ulakachtem doesn't need to lachem. You don't say you need to take yourself. Means that you're not allowed to steal it. Yeah, so you can't steal a full corner garment.
Lulav
hagazel. That's right. You're not allowed to. Same with the mitzvah of tzitzis as well. We're not allowed to steal a garment and then put the tzitzis on. That'll be a contradiction in terms. The whole idea of tzitzis is meant to remind you of the mitzvahs. So you've gone out and you've stolen a garment to remind you. So that's I think that's where it's a good question here. Thank you so much.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. So let's start thinking of some answers to the questions which I posed to you. I'm going to share my screen with you. There we go. Okay. Just make this a bit smaller. Okay. So we had those questions. Now the question is, why does it say and v'asu lahem tzitzis, and make for yourself tzitzis? So there is an idea, and the idea of the word and means to make a connection. In fact, we have in the midrash, and this is one of the questions I had on my sheet here. It just tells us the tzitzis is as a reminder, as we see in the verses itself, and very specifically when we see the blue reminds us of the sea reminds us of the sky reminds us of the heavens reminds us of Hashem's throne, and that throne reminds us of Hashem. So if that's the case, then why not just say when you see the tzitzis, you remember Hashem? Yeah. And what we're going to learn today is, in fact, the theme for this year is having a positive perspective on life and connecting things back to Hashem. The idea is when we do that, it is the idea of a process. And sometimes you need to go through a process in order to make the connection. In other words, where our mind thinks, and we're training our mind. In fact, the mitzvah of tzitzis trains our mind to see positive and also to see the godly in things. So therefore, we need to go through steps to do that. So therefore, the word v'asu is almost like the anthem of tzitzis. The lesser vav means and. In fact, the word vav itself, vav and vav, means a connector. And furthermore, the letter vav itself looks like a connector. It means the word vav means a hook, and the vav itself looks like a little hook. So it's if v'asu is coming to hint to us. This is again what the Or HaChaim HaKodesh comes to tell us, that it's all about connecting, making the correct connections to things. So therefore, we do need to go through a process. We see blue reminds us of the sea, the sky, the heavens, the throne, and then to Hashem. And that also connects us to the next question I had, which is not written down in the sheets. Why does it say Isem Uso when you should see it or him? It really says Isem Usam or Usa. You should see them or her, referring to the sitter. Because the end goal of looking at the sitter is Isem Uso, to see him with a capital H. That answers that question. When you see the sitter, we're meant to really connect ourselves back to Hashem. In fact, the gentleman would appreciate the idea. There is a almost universal tradition, minhag, when we say Baruch She'amah, we hold the front two, sits it up in front of us, and we say Baruch She'amah for the duration of that paragraph, and then we kiss them, and then we let them go. Why is it? Why do we hold the front two sitzits? So as we know, the sitzits remind us of the mitzvot, because we have 8 strings and 5 knots. 8 and 5 is 13, plus the numerical value of the word sitzit itself is 600, makes under 613. So that in itself reminds us of the mitzvot. But more importantly, for Baruch She'amah, we hold specifically the front two sitzits. Why? So if you add the knots and the strings together, so it's 8 and 5 is 13. 2 lots of 13 is 26. 26 is the numerical value of Hashem's name. The Yud Hey and the Vav Hey, Hashem Avaya, which is Hashem's name, the 4-letter name which you don't pronounce. So we hold up the 2 tzitzis in front of us. We have 26 Yud Hey Vav Hey, Hashem's name, and that fulfills the Shulchan Aruch starts off with the verse Shavisi Hashem lenegdi samid. I put Hashem before me always. So at the beginning of the songs of praise, which is Baruch She'amar, which leads into the psalms we say to Hashem to warm ourselves up for prayer, there's no better way than putting these 2 tzitzis in front of us, and that gives us the reminder that we have Hashem before us the whole time. So that's an idea. And again, that ties into what the verse is actually requiring us. We look at the tzitzis and we remind ourselves of Re'isem Oso. We think of, or we see, as it were, Hashem. Okay, the next question was, why does it say, Lo sasu achavei levavchem, achavei einechem? Do not go after your heart and your eyes. It's surely the way around. If I see a nice cake, if I'm walking along and see a very attractive woman, it's the eyes which see first, and then the emotions start getting aroused. Why does it say the other way around? Now, the truth is, and we're going to see through the duration of this year, we see what we want to see. It's whatever's in our hearts, that's what we see. I remember when I was about 16, 17 years old, or maybe 18 years old maybe, I had like a summer job, and they used to go around to the car parks and put little etchings of number plates onto people's cars as a security measure. And I did this for a few summers just to earn a little bit of money, and we as a friend's friend who had this business. So it's from when I was doing that, in my mind, as I was going around during those summers, I was always looking at number plates, and in my mind, and whether certain cars came with the number plates etched onto the glass as a security measure. So it was something I was seeing the whole time. So in the duration I was doing that, all I could see was number plates and etchings. So it's whatever's in our hearts, whatever we're involved in, that's what we often see. There's a story told, and I hope this is not too unpolitically correct, or however, we can change the story if you want to, but it's basically a dad, a mum, and I'll take this off the text in a second. Right. It's a dad, a mum, and a little boy looking outside of their window. So the dad looks out and he can see one of his neighbors got a brand new flashy red sports car, and he's looking out at that, and that's what he can see. The little boy's looking out, and he can see one of his friends is just across the road has got a little, one of those basketball hoops, and he's playing with it, and that's what the boy's looking at. And then the wife's looking out of the window and she's saying, wow, these net curtains need a really good wash. They're all looking out on the same scene, but whatever's in the heart, that's what they see. The father sees what he's interested, the son sees what and the mother sees what she's interested in. So basically it's your eyes see where your heart comes from. Yeah. Okay, let's go to the text and pick out a couple of more things.
It's all right.
Okay. So the last question I want to mention, and really which will lead us into the next section, is what is the connection between tzitzis and the sedra? Now, before we get to that, we did have another question just to tie up, and that's the meaning of the word tzitzis. I didn't hear. Does anybody know what the actual word tzitzis actually means? As I asked the question, how do you translate the word tzitzit? Anybody got a good translation for me? Who's that? That's Yehuda, is it? I'm mute. Is that Yehuda? Else? I'm mute, Yehuda. Unmute yourself. We go.
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yeah.
It's from the word to look, latitz.
Yeah.
It's like hiding sick, like latitz, like from the corner of your eyes.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Yehuda. And we're going to show you now the verse where it comes from. In fact, some of you would have heard that there's the word sitz itself refers to the golden plate which was peering out on the top of the head of the high priest, the Kohen. That's called the tzitz. and they had a certain function. It was describing Kadosh la Hashem. It was holy to Hashem. But that is because it peered out from between his turban and his tefillin. So this golden band went across the top of his head to peer out. But we've actually got a verse which we will recognize from it's from, we actually say Kinloss Lunch. It's a verse from the we say it's in the Song of Songs. And this, if you didn't know this before, it's a beautiful idea which reminds us of the specialness of the Kotel HaMaravi. It says like this: so this verse, Shlomo HaMelech is referring to God's divine presence. It's going to stand behind the wall. Mashgiach, it's going to look over from the windows, and its meitzitz, it's peering out like it's hide and seek, as you heard us mention. Minacharakim, from the narrow little cracks. Yeah, and isn't this amazing? This was a prophecy. We know that Shlomo HaMelech actually built the temple, but he knew it was going to be destroyed, like his father, David HaMelech, had the prophecy what's going to happen to the temple eventually. But there's this promise in the Song of Songs that there's going to be an element of the Shekhinah, the divine presence, which is going to remain in the Kotel. And isn't this amazing? For over hundreds of years, Jews have gone to this place, and we put little, in the cracks, we put these little notes in there. And I was thinking before that it might be a two-way process. Number one, there is a promise that the Shekhinah is going to be there, but it is perpetuated when Jews go there and make this very emotional connection from the most religious to the least religious. There was a story about an Israeli. Actually, I think he came up on Shabbos. Actually, he arrives in the car, and there was a big car came up. And he was a very young Israeli. He just had one of these, these kippots on his head, one of those paper ones. He came up to the wall and he wrote a little message in it, and he put it in there. And then he left and got back in his car. This is on Shabbos, yeah. So there's somebody wanting what it was. It turns out this is a famous Israeli football player, and somebody wanted to. What did he possibly want to put in the wall? So basically, somebody opened it up, had a look. I think it fell out. It says, "Please Hashem, help us to win the football match this afternoon." But we know, whatever, from the most religious to the not so religious prayers, whatever it is, there's a place of connection, a place of connection. So it's almost been perpetuated, the way the Jews come to that place, and these little cracks where all the tefillahs of the Jews go in, that's where the Shekhinah comes out. Again, the word tzitzis means to peer out, to come out. And interesting, so we're going to look now into the Sedra, and we're going to see this theme comes throughout, the idea of perception and seeing things. Okay, now, the beginning of the Sedra, we'll see the words now, and we'll recognize it from what we just learned from the Maftir, or what described about the Sitzit, how it ties in beautifully to the beginning of the Sedra. The beginning of the Sedra, Shlach Lecha, starts like this. Shalach lecha anashim, send for yourself men. Vayasu es eretz Canaan. Rashi says men. It was the most after Aaron and Moses, the most chashuv, the most important members of the Jewish people. They were handpicked to be emissaries of the Jewish people to Vayasu es eretz Canaan, to spy out or to tour out. Now this is where this word comes in the third paragraph of the Shema. We said, "V'lo sasuru acharei," do not tour after your hearts, and that's where this very word appears at the beginning of our Sedra. Eretz Canaan, Asher ani nosen livnei Yisrael, which I'm giving to the Jewish people. Again, Hashem promised many times that this land is given to you. It's going to be given to you. He promised us many times, but yet, and the Jewish people lacked the belief, and they had to send people in. Moshe, the Rashi brings, says, "Shalach lecha," send for yourself. I'm telling you it's good land, but if you want to send it in and you feel it's the right thing to do with the people's petition to you, then you, Moshe, send it in. But it's the land which I am going to be giving to you. The next verse says, "U'isem es eretz es," you should see the land. Again, we see this connection to the third paragraph of the Shema. It says, "U'isem oso," you should see it. It's all about perception. Mahi, what is the land? Ve'es ha'am, and the people, hayoshev aleha, who dwell on this land. Hechazak hu harafeh, is it strong? Is it weak? Hama'athu imrav, is the population few, or is it many? So again, just to emphasize, we have the connection between the beginning and the end. But unfortunately, as we know, the mission of the spies did not turn out well. And they came back and they gave a negative report. We're going to see later on, they came back on the 9th of Av. And on that day or that evening, the people cried. And Hashem said, I'm going to give you a reason to cry. You're going to wander in the desert for 40 years. And this day, the day that the spies came back, is going to be a day of national tragedy for the Jewish people. Now, we are going to take you now to the Haftorah. Okay, the Haftorah is taken from the book of Joshua. And we know that's every week almost. The Haftorah, the reading of the prophets, always or almost always parallels the reading of the Torah reading. And when we come to Shlach Lecha, this is almost a perfect match between the Haftorah reading and the Torah reading, because it talks about the spies this time were the spies of Joshua. Let's do a short. Some of my children are revising for GCSEs, and one of the questions they always ask in GCSEs is compare and contrast. Yeah, compare and contrast different things. Let's compare and contrast the the spies in the times of Moshe and the spies in the times of Joshua, 40 years later. So we know that in the times of Moses there were 12 spies sent. They were there for 40 days. And miraculous things happened. Yeah, they had what they call kvitza sederech. They traveled, and they were not noticed. Miracles happened whereby they were not noticed. They also came across giant fruit, which they took back from the land of Israel. In other words, they had all these amazing things happening to them, and yet they were not. They brought back a negative report. What happened in the time of Joshua? So Joshua sent just 2 spies, which we're going to show you in a minute. We'll go through the text in a minute. He sent 2 spies. As soon as they stepped into the city of Jericho, their presence was aware of straight away. So they had to hide. They hid on the roof initially, in Rachav's roof in her inn. And then they had to run away for 3 days into the mountains until it was safe to come back. And then when they eventually came back to Joshua, so in this case, everything was going against them. They were known about straight away, and they had no miracles happen for them. They had to hide away. And when they got back, not only did they not mention all the bad things, but they said, it's unbelievable. We're going to be able to go into this land. We're going to be able to conquer it. So we see something very, very interesting. Again, we'll build this up as a theme. We have 2 people looking at the same situation, similar situation. One, and it is even more so. Everything goes well for this first group, but they can only see bad. And everything goes bad for the second group, but they can only see good. Okay, let's just read the text again just to pick it out. Vayishlach Yoshua ben Nun min Shittim. Joshua sent from Shittim Shnaim Anashim Meraglim, 2 spies, Cheresh, silently. And there's a whole, the rabbis have a lot to say about this word Cheresh, silently, but we're not going to go into now. Leimor saying, L'chu ru'u es haaretz, go and see the land, V'es Yericho, which is going to be the first city they're going to come to. Vayelechu vayavo'u, they went and they arrived, Beis Ish Zona, to this the house of the innkeeper, Ushma Rachav, Vayishkevu Shama, and they stayed overnight there. Vayei Amel Amelech, and again, straight away, the king found out straight away their presence was where Yericho Leimor Hine Anashim Ba'u. These men have come. Heina Halayla Mibnei Yisrael Lachpor Es Haaretz. They come to spy out or search out the land. Okay, now let's go into a 5th source. Actually, it's going to be the last source now, which I'm going to present to you, which is the decree to wander in the deserts. And we're going to bring out a couple of interesting things and a wonderful question here. It says like this: Mispah Hayamim, according to the number of days, again the word tartem is not to tour. It's the number of days which you've toured, searched out the land. 40 days. You're there for 40 days. Yom Lashana, day for year. Yom Lashana, a day for year. Tisu. You should carry your iniquity, your sin, 40 shana, 40 years of Yidatem es tenu'asi, and you'll be able to know my ways or my movements. Now, there's a couple of interesting questions. The first one, a little bit of a technical one, but it seems to be the grammar by the decree is wrong. It says, it says Yom Shana, 1 day for 1 year. It's wrong. It should say 1 year for 1 day. It's not correct. What does it mean, Yom Shana? Yom Shana. Okay, sometimes the Torah speaks in language to give an emphasis. That is also a question, but why emphasize this bit here? But the question I really want to ask, it should say Shana Yom, a year for a day. Maybe I can open up any other thoughts on that. I must tell you, I'm giving Shirim face to face. I crave and I love the interaction, the questions. Yeah. So in a Zoom setting, it's a bit harder, but maybe just open up. Any thoughts on that? Why does it say a day for a year? So we say a year for each day. Any thoughts? Yehuda's wants to say something again, I think. I'll mute him.
Sorry. Usually you say Yom L'Shana, not Shana L'Yom. Normally you say Yom L'Shana.
No, but here we're saying the decree is it's a year for that day. In other words, they walked around the desert. Sorry, they walked around the land of Israel for 40 days. The decree was each day you walked around the land of Israel, you're gonna be punished for 1 year per that day. So you should say 1 year for the day, not a day for a year. Yeah, it says Yom L'Shana. It should say Shana L'Yom. You're gonna get 1 year for each day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on when they mean Yom L'Shana, they mean for every year, for every day.
Yeah.
You suffer for a year.
Yeah, that's right. But it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. I just recognized Richard Ellis from Leeds. How you doing, Richard?
Hello, Richard.
It's good to make these connections, and I've got my Rabbi Barry Zakon from Kenton.
By the way, this is my bar mitzvah sedra.
Oh, this is your bar mitzvah sedra. Oh,
yes,
Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov.
By you.
Fantastic. Okay, so that's one question I want to ask. Why does it say Yom L'Shana? I should say Shana L'Yom. The next question is this question asked by Chaim Shmulevitz, who was the Mirror Rosh Yeshiva. It's an absolute genius question. And again, it's a lovely question to ask around your Shabbat table. And the question is as follows. Punish 40 years for 40 days. It seems an unfair punishment. This is his question. Why was a punishment 40 years for 40 days? The sin of Lashon Hara happened on 1 day. Yeah? They spoke Lashon Hara on the day. They came back on the 9th of Av, and it was 2 ways. They spoke Lashon Hara about the land of Israel, and the second part of it is the Jewish people believe it. Yeah, so it should only be okay. They went around the land for 40 days, but actually the sin happened on 1 day, and the mass of the people only sinned for 1 day because they believed the Lashon Hara on 1 day. Surely, the decree should be 1 year for 1 day that they sinned with the sin of Lashon Hara. So why are they having a 40-year punishment? Again, I can open up any thoughts because the idea of learning is to open up your mind and thinking about things. So, any thoughts on that? Why was the decree a harsh 40-year decree rather than a 1 year decree? Leo wants to give us an answer, and I think Barry wants to give us an answer. But one of you unmute yourself. Barry, can you unmute yourself?
No.
Oh, Barry, there we go. You're unmuted.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, I'm unmuted. Okay, can you hear me?
We'll come back to you, Leo. Barry's going to speak first, okay? Come on, Barry.
Oh, I'm just wondering why we come up with a new reason for the long trip when we've already learnt before that God sent them around the long way because he thought they would be frightened if they went straight. It would only have taken them a few days to get to Israel, but God sent them around the long way because they would be frightened on the way, and also because they needed time to form themselves into a nation. Right. Now we're saying they sent around for 40 years as a punishment for something else.
So
why do we need another reason when we already have one?
So the truth is, Barry, and this goes back to my bar mitzvah sedra. My bar mitzvah sedra is of Bashalach. Bashalach, actually, it was the same shoresh, the same roots as, and actually Rabbi Lawrence's bar mitzvah sedra is Bashalach. Yeah, we say we have Rabbi Lawrence and myself had many birthday parties together, jelly and ice cream and sleeping lions and pass the pass and all that sort of stuff. But we shared.
By the time you were playing Sleeping Lions, I had graduated to
what?
Something a little bit older. I was playing bridge, I think.
Okay, so Barry's question is a very good question, but the truth is, no, they were going to go into the land of Israel that year. They were going to go to the land of Israel that year. The 40 years, in retrospect, did give us time to form ourselves as a nation and people, but that was not going to happen. In fact, when it says in Bashalach that he didn't take them by the way the Pelishtim, by the Philistines, the Palestinians, that's where the Philistines come from, the Philistines. He didn't take, because they were a warring, aggressive nation. But we were going to go and see the Torah on Mount Sinai. That was something. We're going to cross the Red Sea and we'll see the Torah on Mount Sinai. That was the diversion. So there was two reasons why he didn't send us by the way of the Philistine. Number one, because that they were a warring nation. At that moment, just as we're leaving Egypt, we were going to fear and go back to Egypt. But there was another overriding reason why he didn't go that way, because we were going to go down to the Red Sea, then through the Red Sea, and then we see the Torah on Mount Sinai. And from Mount Sinai, we're going to go straight into the land of Israel. Yeah, and this is the point. This is where we're at the beginning of the Sedra. Or there's a discussion about the building of the Mishkan that happened, whether that was a result of the sin of the golden calf. That's debated amongst the Meforshim, but certainly the 40-year decree was never only came about because of the sin of the spies. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, Leo.
Right. Sorry, I have a more fundamental question. Look, these two guys, there were two guys, yes, or whoever, they were the ones that committed the sin. They were the ones that brought wrong, dibas raw. Yep. Surely, and we have in the Torah, ish becheto yomus. Yep. Anybody that sins, he should die. Right. They were obviously very eloquent speakers, marvelous speakers, and the people were taken in by them. Right. Surely the punishment should have just been on those two guys, you know, whatever, they would never enter Israel, but why should all the others have to, they had to have to, just because they listened to a very good speaker. I mean, we're all taken in sometimes by good speakers, even by good rabbis, with all due respect, with all due respect. So why should they? And the other point I wanted to make, which is going back to Tzitzis, another similarity, shalach lecha. True, it's in the singular, but we had also lohem, right? One is for them, and lecha. Very again another. You brought a sort of a reflection. As it were. So I just thought of that as well. So that's my question about it all.
So I just saw a message there that's Rabbi Lawrence is warning you because he has the power of mute. Yeah, but eventually we'll be back in the shore, so you won't have enjoy it whilst you have it, Rabbi Lawrence. But I just want to say, actually, Leo, I think what I'd like to borrow you for Shenley. If you can move out to Shenley, I love your questions. Brilliant questions. Really
See my agent.
Okay, fine. We'll put up the money, whatever it is. We'll get you over here.
I can't have him, but I'm happy to nominate some others.
Okay, fine. Yeah, we can arrange transfers of membership fees. No problem. My we'll speak about that after this year. Okay, but let's get back to your questions. So shalach lecha, that first question, that question dealt with Rashi. Rashi says, and I haven't got Rashi in front of me. Ani eini mitzaveh lecha. I am not commanding you to do it. If you want to, then you do send. Shalach lecha. So there is shalach. Otherwise, it's shalach anashim, which means Hashem is saying you got no option. It's actually tzivui, command, send.
Right.
But because it's shalach lecha, it's giving the option. I'm told you it's a good land, yeah, and anybody knows it's a good land. But it's up to you. You want to do it. The second question is, why should it be that the whole generation should be wiped out because of just 10 people he came back with a bad report? So that actually there's two concepts. Number one, there is a very powerful concept called shaliach shel adam kamoso. A messenger of somebody is like you. Who appointed the spies? It was the people. Yeah, the people appointed the spies. They came up to Moshe and said, "We want people to do it." And actually, this goes two ways, because we know, interestingly, the spies, these 12 who were sent at the beginning, they were tzaddikim. They were the choices of the Jewish people. How did they go so wrong? How did they go so wrong? And how could Moshe so misjudge these spies? And the answer is shaliach shel adam kamoso. They were righteous. They were righteous, but because they were sent on behalf of the people, they were influenced by the people to see the negative. They were influenced by the people, and when we look at modern politics, you know, a lot of which way is it? Is it the people or is it the politicians?
Why do you assume that? It was a genuine question. Listen, we're entering.
So Rashi brings further. We have a second recording of the sin of the spies in the Seder Devarim, right at the beginning of Devarim. In fact, interesting, when we come to it's going to be in a few weeks' time. We read the book of the Seder Devarim. Always comes out just before Tisha B'av. Yeah, just before Tisha B'av. Now there it says, "V'tikruvun elai kulachem." You came to me, all of you. Rashi says there, but arbuvia in a rabble. Yeah, you came to me, and you came as a rabble. In other words, when they approached the question and the request to send spies into the land of Israel was not done as a genuine l'shem shemayim. We want to know what it's like, etc. It was done. It was done in a negative way, because how do you know? They came together as a rabble. So therefore, that rabble was sent the spies, and therefore these spies who were genuine good people became influenced by them. Yeah, that's the one thing. Now the other reason why the whole generation was punished, because lashon hara, and this is a very important point to bring out, has two sides to it. There has the speaker, and then you have the audience. Yeah, mute everybody. I'll mute you, Leo. Is that okay? The lashon hara, as we know, has two. If there's no audience, there's no lashon hara. In other words, if somebody comes up to me and says, "Oh, let me tell you something about Rabbi Lawrence," yeah, and I say, "I'm not." Know about Rabbi Lawrence. You can meet me as well, can't you?
Not as far as let me tell you something about Rabbi Alan.
No. Anyway, so I was going to say, so there's two sides to lashon hara. There was the mashpia and the makabel, the one who wants to give over the information, and the one who wants to receive it. If the people are not interested in hearing it, then there's no lashon hara. So therefore, they did deserve to the decree. Yeah, but interestingly enough, we see that they were punished straight away. The 10 spies, the wicked spies, the Midrash says that their tongues grew out of their mouth and it went into their belly button. Yeah, and they had some sort of, then worms came out of their tongues, and the idea is that their punishment was midah keneged midah, measure measure. They sinned with their tongues, and their tongues grew out of them and punished them thusly. The rest of the generations, we know that they died in the desert. Yeah, and now let's go back to the text again, and we can answer the two questions. One, why does it say yom l'shana? So it says shana l'yom. It's because as follows. When they died in the desert, it says Yom L'Shana, means 1 day every year. Yom L'Shana means 1 day every year they died in the desert, meaning that when would they die? On the anniversary date of Tisha B'Av. On the anniversary date, this is what the Midrash tells us, and it sounds really gruesome. But on the year after the sin of the spies, every Jewish male who was not from the tribe of Levi. The Levies and the ladies were not involved in the sin, so they were not. So every year they had to dig a grave, a mass graves on that day, and they all had to sit in it. Yeah. And there was like a national lottery, not very nice lottery, but it was a national lottery. Who was going to die? And 15,000 Jews every year died until the very last year. And the Midrash tells us, according to one opinion, there was a reprieve for the last 15,000. They lay in the grave, and this is where we get the minor festival of Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av. So they lay in the grave, and what they thought was the 9th of Av. This was in the very last year, and then the next morning they went, oh, I'm here, I'm still alive. So they thought, or maybe we miscalculated. So they tried the next night, actually the 10th, and they laid themselves down. And again, they hadn't died. They did the next few nights until they got to the 15th, where they looked up into the desert sky, and they saw a full moon, and they realized that the decree has passed. And that year, the last 15,000 had a reprieve. And that's why one of the reasons why it's a joyous day, because the decree of the dying out of the desert finished on the 15th of that year. Okay, so that answers that question. Why it's a Yom L'Shana. So each day, Yom, one day, L'Shana of each year, there was going to be a passing away of a fragment of the Jewish people until they got to the land of Israel. Now, why was this punishment? Why was the punishment? So we go. The answer is we're punished for their negative outlook. Why was it 40 days? Again, the sin of Lashon Hara only happened on one day. So there should have been one year. They should have been punished. They heard Lashon Hara and they spoke Lashon Hara and they heard Lashon Hara only for one day. No, they were punished not only for the hearing Lashon Hara, but they were punished for the mission as well. The 40 days they came, they looked at things with negative outlook. That's why they were punished. And I think.
Rabbi, part of the point is that it said the 40 days. Yes, when people are preparing reports, they will often, the whole perception, they might give a report in one position, it's their whole position as they're going through, totally. So in other words, the whole period of the inspection, which was at the request of the people, their whole attitude, which reflected on their negative outlook when they gave their report.
Okay. It wasn't so clear. Rabbi Lawrence, did you hear that was a question?
David, try again. Just stay a little further from your microphone. The sound didn't come across clearly.
Let's see. I'm used.
Or type it.
Is that better?
No.
Is that better?
I can hear. Go on. Just say it again.
What I'm trying to say is that when people are preparing a report and they go out to inspect, you use your eyes to inspect, which then sets your views. And going back to the point of one day per year, for 40 years, why 40 years when you've only got one day when you're actually issuing your report? The whole period of your report is one period. And therefore, the people ask for the report, they ask for a 40-day inspection, and that's why there's a 40-year effect.
I got some of it. I didn't get to all of that.
Yeah, it was about the day for year and the expansion of it. Sorry, David, it's very difficult.
But the question which
No. You need to type it because it's just not coming across.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. I've got a few more minutes. I'm going to be schmoozing with you. So whilst you can type the question,
I'll try and do it that way.
Okay. Thank you. Right. Okay. So again, we're building up this amazing picture, and hopefully the message I'm trying to get across to you is all about perception. And let's tie in everything together. Just finish off with a few really important points. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my text. Okay. Now, so we said before. So now I think we're getting a stronger understanding of why we have the parsha of tzitzis. Again, it's a bit of a random mitzvah. Where mitzvahs appear in the Torah, they appear different things. In fact, we're going to have in a few weeks' time the parshas of Chukat, the law of the red heifer. Again, it's sort of randomly appears, the laws of the road heifer in that place. And again, maybe something Rabbi Lawrence can give you a Joshua about why it appears there. But certainly our question today is, why do we have the mitzvah of tzitzit as like almost like the conclusion of the story of the spies? And I think what we've just done today hopefully has made it fairly clear, because it's all a matter of perception. And it clearly, the spies had a negative perception of the land of Israel, whether it was from themselves, whether it was in accordance with the people's mission that they sent them, whatever it was. But we know that they had everything going for them, yet they could only see the negative. Whereas we have the story of Joshua, which they could, everything going against them, but they could only see the positive. And so therefore the mitzvah of tzitzit comes as an antidote. How do we actually set our perception to get the correct perception of life? Because you have one person looking at something, and there are obviously, as we know, different ways of perceiving it. How do we get the true way of seeing it? So that's where we have the Torah and the mitzvot, and the mitzvah of tzitzit, which is a physical way of helping to hone our vision in a positive way. And again, the word tzitzit itself, as we went through early on in this year, means a perception. And we also learned it out. The starting point is not the eyes, as we told you with that story about the people looking out the window. It's what we want to see. It's what's in our hearts, and that's what we see. Don't go after your hearts. In other words, what you're setting after your eyes. Rather, look at the tzitzit and try to connect everything back to the divine will. What is it that Hashem wants me to see in this situation? And so that's why we have, and it's particularly to men have the tzitzit. We know that the women did not see with negative perception. It was only the men. So it's the men who have this mitzvah of tzitzit to try to get them to see the correct perspective. Now, let's just finish off with a few thoughts over here. Yeah, and the first one is I have just, thank God, finished. I'm not toting for business. Well, I just finished my postgraduate in CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, which is actually all about helping people to be able to correct the lens within which they either perceive themselves, situations, their lives, and to help them to reframe and to get a better understanding of where they are in life and get a more healthier way of perception in life. So really, one of the underpinnings of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is the following strapline, which is really the title of the year. Life is not what happens to me, it's how I perceive it. Life is not what happens to me, it's how I perceive it. And there's a lovely quote from Mark Twain. My life has been filled with terrible misfortunes, most of which have never happened. In other words, how much of our lives do we spend either with a negative perception of what's going on, or worries or anxieties or things which never really happen, but we spend X amount of time? How do we actually maintain a positive perception life? And that's where we have our Torah and mitzvahs to be able to do that. Now, maybe you can also to connect this into our current situation under COVID-19. Again, there's many ways to frame or to see it, and there have been tragedies. Many of us have had people who we love who have either been ill or have passed away through the pandemic, and it's been very difficult situations. But the reality, it is here. And we have to be able to either adapt ourselves, as we've had doing these Zoom shiurim, and the many other ways we're trying to do our shopping online, all those sort of things. And it's all about reframing our situation. We can sit and go through the pandemic, and we're moving towards, coming out of lockdown by complaining and grumbling. I wish we had back to the life we had before, and moaning all through this pandemic. Or we can reframe it and see the blessings and the positives which come out from this situation. And how do we do that? So we have to obviously involve Hashem. In fact, I just put this down here. I was thinking, I was davening this morning, how do we get a positive perspective on life? So we have a meditation we say before the Shema. Enlighten our eyes in your Torah. And let our hearts cling to your mitzvahs. Yeah, and I was just thinking now, maybe this is something I need to think about. Here the order's the way around. Here we mentioned the eyes first and then the hearts. There's something maybe I need to think about why it's the other way around now. Maybe Rabbi Lawrence might have a thought on that, but we'll come to it. The final thing I want to share with you before we sort of open up and the other questions is a lovely little joke. What is the difference between a Jewish pessimist and a Jewish optimist? So a Jewish pessimist always says things can't get any worse, but a Jewish optimist says yes, they can. Okay. So anyway, I'd be interested to hear any feedback or any questions, or maybe something you might have learned today which you haven't learned before. So again, if I was in a room with you, I'll be able to sense that. But through a Zoom shiur, it's hard to capture that. But if you got any maybe if you want to share something that you've learned, or you've got any extra questions, please ask me. Leo's got another question. Go on, you can unmute yourself. Is that right, Lawrence?
Yeah.
Go on. I can't. Leo, you need to unmute yourself.
Yep, I've unmuted. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yep.
Good. Firstly, many thanks for a wonderful share. Thoroughly enjoyed it. But you said something to me which I'd never thought of. Tell me, when we come to Shalach Lecha, it's straight away. But in Devorim, I didn't appreciate, evidently, you said, the rabble came. But why was this not mentioned before Shalach Lecha? Because basically, I mean, the truth of the matter is, and I think this is the essence, that they didn't have faith in God. God said, "You will go to the land of Israel," etc., etc. I mean, that's such a and they didn't have this fundamental belief as we had before the Red Sea. You know, they complained, "Oh, we're done for." Why this should have been mentioned? Here they come. We've got problems. Why wasn't it mentioned? Because if you're thrown straight into Lachlecha, I had the obvious question. Why was that omitted? This is such a fundamental thing, because basically what was happening was that they didn't have trust, belief, faith that God would deliver them, would be able to help them to the land of Israel. That to me is, I didn't even think of that, but to me that's a very important. Why not? You can't. We're doing now Shalach Lecha, and Devorim usually repeats what's been happening before. This is really new information.
Okay, very good. So again, Leo, you have to. I need to get you for Shenley. It's brilliant questions, brilliant questions. So first of all, the way the Torah works, it reveals things sometimes they survive. There's a mukdam mucham Torah, but also one of the purposes of Devarim is actually to fill in extra information. And actually, maybe that even tells us something about this whole situation. When we look at a situation itself, sometimes we can't just we need to know, we judging it, but actually there's more background information. And how often that comes up in our lives, something comes up, so you need to look a bit deeper. Devarim provides that for us. Certainly in this circumstance, it gives us extra information what actually happened. Yeah, good. I think we've actually got to 2 o'clock, so I'm not quite sure what the situation.
Right, I'm muting. Thank you.
Rabbi Lawrence, it's 2 o'clock. If people have extra questions,
we'll turn into pumpkins. You were saying you weren't sure what the feedback from the room is. All I can say is, when the numbers go up during the Zoom session rather than down during the Zoom session, that's always a very, very positive indication. Thank you very much, Rabbi Garber, for your lunch and learn.